Hello, guys. Thank you for being here. We have a small group today, but we're still going to have fun. We're going to talk about competition. We're going to talk about, we'll do a quick review of how it's happening. We will talk about some specific questions. I will tell you, I have lots of questions just because I am a newbie competitor. And Paul and Linda are here to answer my questions. Stuart, I don't know, do you compete very often?
Yeah, actually, I have one. I asked Javon this question in the group after the last time we did this call. Is I got my reviews from
from judges?
District. And what she gave me some tips on how to make it an even stronger image. And so what I want to do is take those and make those recommended changes, put that one in the GPPA.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
See if it scores any higher. I mean, this image is already in Texas, got a Tex Excellence Award. So it was like one of the best of the best.
Awesome.
And so I think with the tweaks that she told me, it might make it an even more powerful image.
That's so cool.
And what's really so cool, it was a client. It was from my 40 over 40. One of my clients.
Oh, that's neat. Oh, yeah. That's really neat.
So now I have to find 3 more images because the other 3 I submitted all bombed. And every time I've submitted them and they're not fixable to where I can compete with them. So I have to I have 1 or 2 that I'm working on from Italy that I'm
very cool.
Try and work on. That's another big question that what got raised with Michael in the competition stuff.
Yeah.
Is
let's pause really quick and let me go ahead and just tell really quick how the competition is going to do, and then we'll get into deep questions.
Okay.
All right. So if you didn't see our last Zoom, let me explain very quickly how you get your images and how to register for our photographic competition. So if you go to, I'm going to show the website. Give me a second. It's gppa.com/rules. And I know it's not the most intuitive title, but that's what it is. It has all of our competition rules, and it's a little easier to navigate than say if you went to printcompetition.com and tried to do it from there. So it explains all of our rules, and then eligibility, deadlines, and fees. This is really important. Tuesday, July 12th, 12 a.m. So basically the 11th is when you need to submit those images. 12 a.m. is midnight. So 12:01 a.m. you can't get it in. So make sure that you submit by that deadline. You can register without putting any images in. So you can go ahead and just say, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to register. This is printcompetition.com where it's going to be held. You would just go ahead and create new artist registration if you've never done it before and put that in. I'm already registered, but you pick, the year with GPPA. Oops, be good if I spelled it right. Here we are. And you can see our competition is on the 15th, but that's not the deadline. Basically the 11th at midnight is the deadline. So you can register. It's $75. It's a case of 8 images, correct? Am I correct?
Yes, 8 images.
8 images, yep. And so once you register, you're registered, and then you can upload your 8 images, and then until the 11th at midnight, you can edit them as much as you want, tweak them a little bit or replace them, and you can re-upload the image. So you can, tweak it until the last minute there. If you are coming down to our live Club 79, which is basically where we'll watch the live judging, we will be at the Columbus Hilton Garden Inn. on Friday the 15th. Let me see if I can show you. And we'll be in a room there. And Club 79 is basically where we're just going to watch and chat and see the judging.
What time does it start?
Starts at noon. So typically it runs 4 to 5 hours, 4.5 to 5 hours. There is like little breaks in between for the judges to have like a little comfort break or grab a snack or something like that. But it's pretty fun. It's fun to watch. So hope you do that. The one thing that's different about our judging from the state is that our judges are using numbers instead of thumbs up and thumbs down, the way that the judging is doing for the PPA competitions. They're doing thumbs up and thumbs down. So basically merit or non-merit. Oh, we got a lot of background noise. I don't know who that is. Stuart, you want to mute?
It's all right.
Okay, yeah. That was just, I think, an airplane or something. So the good thing about competing in our state competition is that, you know, usually it was 0 to 100 as far as what score you got. And then it was 80, I believe. Is that right, Paul? That would be a merited image.
Yes, correct.
So yeah. Club 79 is like basically when you're so many people have gotten a 79, like it's almost there. So you know you're close, but with the thumbs up, thumbs down, you don't know how close you are. So having that number is really good feedback to what these judges think it's close to.
Is that the way that we're going to do it in Columbus?
We're going to do it with numbers. Mm-hmm.
Super.
Yep. And so that's how we've done it last year as well. And I don't know, what we'll do going forward, but I think people like the numbers. We really do like getting a score.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know who the judges are? Are they listed on the website?
They are, and I can show them to you just a second. We have great judges. We have several that are IPC judges, International Photographic Competition judges. We have several that are JITs, judges in training. And so how they get, certified to judge in the IPC, the big PPA competition, is by doing competitions like ours. So let's see here if I can just pull it up. Here we go. Here are our judges. All right. So you can see a little more about them here on the gppa.com/judges website. All right. So we're going to go ahead and talk about questions. And then since Javon's not here, I did want to show you guys a progression of how he took a non-merited image to a merited image, and as he competed. So he did post that on Facebook, and we don't have a record of that on the Zoom, so I wanted to show that off. Linda, why don't you go ahead and get back to those questions you were asking?
You
were talking about like some of the rules about.
Right. Michael had posted in one of the GPPA things about some of the images he had created on the trip to Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing here is that even though we were with Kelly and Kalina, they were in no way involved in any of the pictures that were taken. So for example, I would go off with a model on my own with another photographer, and we would shoot. So I made all the decisions on how to light it, how to set it, everything else. So every image that I took in Italy is wide open for competition.
That's cool. That's very cool.
And that's why he does it the way he does it, so that if we do create powerful images, we can use them.
Yeah, so usually if you're under instruction of some sort of instructor or master photographer, you're going to a workshop where basically the photographer sets up the scene or the backdrop, the lighting, and then you have a chance to shoot what their kind of typical setup is like. Those wouldn't qualify to be in competition. But if you're doing all the work on your own and you're making all those photographic decisions, then yes, that would qualify. And thanks for that clarification.
Right, because I have some images like I did with Alicia of my cat that are awesome, but because I did it at a class she was teaching, I cannot submit those images.
Okay, yeah. Well, it's good to know because also, you know, things will, I mean, judges will notice if they see images from different people that are like the same setting or the same model, you know, that might be a problem where they're like, they don't necessarily know, was this taken at a workshop under instruction? So that's something to be aware of. And honestly, if you and Michael are submitting things from the same, you know, of the same model or the same setting, you guys might want to talk to each other and make sure you're not, you know, coming.
Well, what was really cool is that he and I never were paired together. So all of our images are completely different.
That's cool. Hi, Armitris. You're on mute. Armitris, hey, hi, are you recovered from the dental surgery? I asked Armitris out to dinner with me and Tracy, and she's like, I'm recovering from dental surgery.
Yeah. Today's day 2, so still no solid. Well, still eating soup for now, but
soup in 100-degree weather. That sounds wonderful.
I know. Soup and yogurt. Soup and yogurt for now. I can do solid foods on one side. They did one side at a time. So
okay. Oh, you're going in again?
No, they did this side a couple of months back, and this side was done yesterday. So just saltwater rinses right now and taking antibiotics to make sure no infection gets in there.
Oh, I'm glad you're feeling
I feel fine. Yeah, it's just when you sit out to dinner, I was like, can't eat. So, and yesterday was the first day, so I'm supposed to rest up.
Okay. Well, the rain check. Hey, if you guys ever come in like my general area, I'm gonna want to like do something with you. All right, so let's talk about some more questions. And Paul and Linda and Armitris, since you are more veteran competitors. Oh, Lisa's coming too. Awesome. You can answer because this is coming from me as a newbie. Okay. So let's talk about what are kind of the, I have literally thousands of images, so I have plenty of images to choose from. What are some of the things you do to like narrow things down to what you want to compete with?
I'll jump in.
Yeah.
For me, the first time I competed, I went to a class and I was told that 2 of the images that I submitted were really good. So those were the 2 that I worked on. I just picked a handful of images that I liked and took them to the class. The last time I competed, what I did was after the first time, because I got some merits, I was all excited. So I bought a loan book. So awesome. What I do is a lot of times I'll go through the loan book. I'll look at images that loaned the prior year to see what others are submitting. And then I'll say, well, wait a minute, I got something kind of like that. That might merit. And then I may pause, because one of mine, that's exactly what happened. I had an image and I thought, I've got something similar to that. I think I'll try it and see if it merits. And it did. It didn't loan, but it did merit. And then, but also if I have something that I just really, really like, I'll have somebody critique it for me to say, is this, it's because I love a picture I have of my great niece, but every time I have somebody critique it, they're like, no. So I haven't submitted. but
Yeah.
I'm gonna re-photograph her this year with the intent of getting a mirrored printout of her. So
That's amazing. Let me know if you need an assistant. I'll come over and hold the reflector.
Yeah, but our Armitris, that's one of the things that people keep telling me is don't submit images of your family that you're really tied to, because when they don't make it, you kind of get crushed.
well, it's not so much that I'm it's just that she's a very photogenic young lady, and I need some people merits, and I don't get a lot of people in front of me very often. And so I got to do what I got to do. I'm going to, those are my models. And if, and it won't crush me if they don't merit. I just keep working at it, but I want some people.
Can I chime in?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Lisa, I'm so glad you're here.
So I will tell you that I agree. Unless you've taken some image of somebody that you're close to, and somebody who is knowledgeable says, you got a winner there, I would never do it. It's just not worth, no matter what. It's hard for us because we say things subjectively. And when you have family in the image, it's hard to hear any kind of critique. Whether you think you're good at it or not, it's hard to accept that information. So I would always suggest never family, especially when you're getting started. Maybe down the road, after you've gotten your master's, after you've really got the hang of competition, because competition is not the same as good images. And I'm sure you've all heard this before. You have an image that is sellable, and you have an image that will do well in competition. And a lot of times they are not the same animal. Another thing I will suggest, because Armitris, you said something about people images. You've got to get people images. No, you don't. I have merited some people images, but you know what? I'm doing way better with not people images. And what I'm finding is I can be more artistic with a flower or a bird or a landscape. And I can really push the boundaries more, which is really kind of what you want to do with competition is see where you can go with your art and your talent. I hope that helps a little bit.
It does, because last year I shot over 2,000 minerals that were an inch big. And I want to do it as an album. And every time I mention that to somebody, they say, that won't merit as an album. But I'm thinking, if there's a way I can phrase it to say, enter into the world of miniature, so that they, to kind of guide the judges in their thought process that these are miniatures, because there's a lot of stuff you have to do to be able to capture something that's an inch by an inch,
Linda, I would submit them. Sharon Schneider Fuentes has merited with some miniatures. And there was another one. There's a woman who does these beautiful little miniatures. Like she'll have a guy. I took a class from her. She does Legos, and she had all of her miniatures tend to have some type of Lego in them. And she had one little guy in a boat fishing on a pond, and it was the coolest image. So I would say go for it with your miniatures. And I don't know if you guys remember, somebody did an album, and it was all, I think, animals, and they did it like a yearbook. So it was like a yearbook it's like a pet yearbook, and each pet was it was some kind of little, it was done comically, but but she won some awards for that album with pet. It was like a pet yearbook album. It was the funniest thing.
Well, I thought about this other one too. Is anybody that's been to my studio knows I have a teddy bear, and I have taken so many pictures of this teddy bear in different poses, in different backgrounds, and think about the adventures of Teddy.
Now, just remember, you can't use the same subject more than once with image submission.
In an album, you can though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, Javon's here. Yay.
Can I respond to that too? Because I did an
Yeah.
album for the first time
Yeah. Lisa.
last year. It was hard. And what they
Yeah.
will tell you is that every image in that album should be able to stand alone as a merit image.
Wow.
So, you know, you've got to go in and maybe you have 20 or 30 images. You have to go in and be tough on yourself and cut out every image that is even questionable.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not merit worthy on its own, it shouldn't go in there. Another thing is with the storytelling, you can't just put these images together and say, hey, I've got this great set of images.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to have a theme, and it needs to carry out through, whether
Yeah.
it's how you present it on the page, if you title the album in such a way that it tells the viewer what they're going to see in each image. And albums, you really should get someone to mentor you, which I did.
Mm-hmm.
It barely made a merit. And I had entered it in some things prior to district, and it was birds. I was going to make an album, and I was going to merit an album with my newfound passion of birds. And I had people critique it. And I had people give me tough love. And with an album, you need some really tough love. And an album could take you 10 years. You know, it's not something like one image that you can work on for a couple of months. An album could be a series that, you know, work on for a year or two. And you keep switching things in and out until you get that final.
Oh, that's very cool. Paul, do you have any like thoughts on the best way to select images?
I mean, I haven't really personally done an album yet. I've toyed with the idea, but I think just because of the complex nature of telling a story, I personally have shied away from it. But yes, I agree. Anybody that I have talked to about albums, they pretty much mirrored what's been said already about making sure every image, for the most part, would be merit worthy. You know, if you had one or two that might be a little weak in there, I don't think that'll pull it down. But I would certainly, if I was going to do it, I would certainly try to ensure everyone in there was very close to being a merit. Because again, they're looking at the whole story. They're going to look at the whole totality of what you present to them. So, but to play it safe, yes, if every image is strong, obviously you're going to up the chances of you getting a merit on the whole album.
Can you talk about just choosing images in general from what you typically shoot? Because I know you submit a lot of images that are from your regular work.
I mean, generally what I do is I created a desktop folder, and throughout the course of my work throughout the year, I'll dump images in there that I feel are kind of a good example of my better work. I try not to compare myself to what's out there. I try to just pull my best work. That's all I can really present. And then come towards competition time, I'll kind of cull through those images, and maybe, you know, if I have, for example, you know, I do a lot of sports. So if I have 15 football images, you know, I'll go and I'll pick one or two out of football. You know, I'll pick, you know, a couple out of baseball or whatever the other sports are, if I'm just looking at sports images. If it's wildlife, I'll try to, you know, narrow it down based on the animal species and go from there. But that's generally what I do. When it gets close to kind of culling down, I'll go through the 12 elements and kind of look at which one do I feel is going to hit all those high points, or at least most of them. And for me personally, I look at impact as the most important. That's just my way of picking my work. If it has impact to me, then it means something. It may not have impact to a judge, and that's happened many times before. And it is what it is. That's the game we play. You know, I try to present work in competition that I feel I enjoy doing. It may have a memory to me. The print I'm doing now is it's a lot of work involved. It's a master artist print. And if it merits or loans, great. If it doesn't, I really enjoyed myself doing it. So that's when I pull my images. I mean, I'm not hunting a degree right now. I've already got both. So for me, I'm just putting work forward that if it doesn't do well and I want to print it and hang it on the wall as my work, then so be it. I try to learn each time from it, but pulling out images, those pretty much I focus on those 12 elements to make sure that I'm going to hit as many of those high points as I can.
Just a technical issue, and well, just as far as like, I'm assuming that you need a model release. Do you also like let your clients know, hey, by the way, I'm competing with this image as well?
Me personally, or
Yeah,
are you just asking in general?
in general, you, but anyone else who wants to answer.
I mean, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. If it's an image that's shot in a public venue, I don't need a release for that. But if it's a headshot or something like that, where it's done on, on a private basis, then yes, they require that because you may be asked for it.
I will answer that.
Thank you.
I do not tell my clients if I enter their image. I used to on occasion. And then they would ask me months later, how did it do? Because they don't understand the nature. They think it's some competition of first, second, third prize, against other people. And if it doesn't merit, it's not fun to say, well, this is what happened. And, so I don't let them know until after, if I've merited with it, then I tell them. It's just a personal thing with me. Why make it a sadder thing than it needs to be if you tell them and then you have to come back months later and say, I bombed. It doesn't help your relationship. And it doesn't,
Okay.
and it's only exciting for them if you get something out of it. So that's my 2 cents.
Hey, Javon, I know you submit a lot of client work. Do you let them know beforehand that you're submitting things to competition? You're on mute. Unmute yourself.
Okay.
There you go.
No, I'm kind of in the same ballpark with Lisa. Most of the time, I know in this most recent round for districts, I texted them and said, I said, by the way, your image that I took of you on this date just sealed in districts. And then, of course, I had a long conversation about what that means. But I usually tell them if something good happens, and I don't tell them if all of my clients sign model releases, and so they pretty much know that I'm going to do this with them. Those guys are geared up, so I just passed a whole bunch of cops. It just, to me, it makes it easier because the last thing I want to do is put a lot of work and a lot of effort into an image, and then for them to go, oh no, well, we don't want you to compete with it, even though I've already got the model release, and then it becomes a problem. I just tell them afterwards once it's merited.
Okay.
At least I'm always
good to know.
scared. I don't think that they would do that, but I'm always scared that they might.
All right. Do we have any other questions before I move on to doing a demo? And you guys are going to help me do the presentation.
I've got 2 cents.
Yeah.
All right. So when I enter, it's always client work. It's just what I'm passionate about getting my degree in. And so we put a lot of work into the images and making them as good as we can. So at the end of that process, after submitting, I've got, good work that I love. The judges unfortunately don't see it that way often enough. But afterwards, I got a really great image. And so if I did enter it in competition, I'll print a small, 12 by 8, whatever the dimension is, and I'll send it to my client and let them know that I entered in competition. thanks for, I don't tell them I blew it, but I let them know, thank you so much, for this great image. I wanted you to have a copy of it. When's your next session? So that's the
Yes,
kind of
that's a
hidden
Stuart
message,
thing. Let's turn this into a selling opportunity.
you know,
Love
you
it.
know,
God,
because the clients, I always hear back from them. They don't always book a session, but they're, oh, that's awesome, great, yeah. Well, Judy's 12 now and she's, in sports, and you hear back, and it's a great way for me to stay in touch with my clients. And how much did it cost? Less than $10 to do that client relation thing. So yeah, I let them know
I
after the
got to be
fact. I
Stuart.
never let them know beforehand, because it does open a can of worms, and then there's disappointment. But I don't tell them how it did. I just said, thanks for posing for me. When's your next session? So.
But Stuart, that's
I got you beat.
Stuart, I'm sorry, Javon, go ahead.
Go ahead, Marcus.
I took a class with a gentleman in Ohio that about a week or so ago named David Beckham. He's a senior photographer, and he's won quite a few awards for his work. And all of David's submissions for print comp are from his senior model team. And so when he wins, he makes a big deal out of it for the senior models. If he's on the cover of the magazine, he makes sure that they know. And so what happens is they post on social media, they tell their friends, and it actually generates more clients for him, because now they know that, hey, I might end up getting published, or my image might win an award. And so it does generate clients, and it generates people on his modeling team for him. So
that's great. Thank you for sharing that. That's a great idea. Javon?
I was just going to tell Stuart that he prints an 8x12. I think the last image that's sealed in districts, I gave my client a 40x60 canvas print.
Yeah, made him money there, Javon.
I'm just not that rich or generous. So yeah, it's all about getting the next session. So good for you, though.
Oh, well, that's really good. Hey, Javon, last time that we did the Zoom, you talked about your progression of images. And so I wanted to show that on the screen. And
Sure.
And then what we'll do is we'll take an image and we'll make a presentation in Photoshop, and then we'll close things out. So we need to finish up in about 20 minutes. So I'm going to share my screen here. All right, so this is Javon, and I'm going to have Javon's image, and I'll have you narrate just a little bit.
Okay, so all right, so this is probably May of 2020 when I photographed this guy. He came in as a mixed family. There's, I think, a good 10 or 12 of them that I ended up, because of everything that was going on with COVID, I photographed them in my garage instead of my living room at the time. They were all first responders, which is how they knew me, because of my Hometown Heroes project. And so I took a second, and because each of them was from out of town and only one of them had been photographed by me before, I did a version of the Hometown Heroes shot with each of them that I really liked this guy. And so this image itself is straight out of camera. So I then edited it, which I feel in a lot of ways I way over edited it, but I like this style of black and white. It's very contrasty and everything like that. And I think it was at this point that I kind of felt like I had something to work with. And I'll be honest with you, I don't remember exactly at what point, if this was just an edit or if I actually entered it into anything yet. Marcia, you may have to let me know because my screen's really tiny.
It just said first edit 2020. So I'm going to move on to the next
so
edit.
this is what the client saw.
Oh, okay, this one back.
This one, yeah.
This one said, realized what I had, second edit.
Yeah. So when I realized at that point that I felt like I had something to work with, I went back and re-edited it for competition because I knew that previous image would never fly in a competition. You have to understand how competitions work to be able to, and I know that sounds terrible, but I mean, there's just certain things. They don't want blocked up blacks. They don't want overexposed highlights. And that, I mean, honestly, it's what we should be going for anyway, but that other image was just way too much loss of
Too
information in
contrast.
the shadows. So I redid the edit, and then if you'll tell me what was this
This
one.
one says GPPA image competition 2020. The scores were 82, 81, 80, 78, and 78. So overall
Yeah.
80, which is a merited,
Yeah,
like
so
that would merit, but
this would be my first entry into competition with this image. And I got really excited about it because it was an 80 and not a 79. So
and
I
by the
felt
way,
like- Go ahead.
by the way, in earlier before you got here, I talked about how our state competition uses scores and not the thumbs up, thumbs down, so you can know how close you are to a merited
Yeah.
image.
Yeah, I feel like it's still really important to get the scores.
Okay.
Which is why I've never
So-
gone away from them at this point.
So this one right here, I went to the next one that said skipped districts, went to IPC 2020, not a merit, back to it.
Yeah, so basically when I say skip districts, it means I actually forgot the deadline and let it slide. And just threw it into IPC, hoping for the best, because I was like, well, hey, it did pretty well at GPPA, maybe it'll do well at IPC, and of course it didn't. But the thing is, if you'll go ahead and go to the next image, I believed in this image, and I really felt there was something to go. So at this point, I was listening to critiques from the GPPA competition, and I listened to critiques from that PPA competition. All right, so what's this one?
This one says edited again, districts 2021 did not seal, back to it again.
So I made the changes that everybody had told me to make and entered it again. Now, if you'll look, I screwed up the edit on this one, but it was one of those where I was entering it at the last minute. And if you look to the, like, if we're looking at the image on his right side, there's a lot of highlight over there by his, like, it's his left, our right here. And there's just
You
way
mean
too
right
much
here?
highlight over there. Yes.
Okay.
And it was unnaturally bright, and it always really bugged me. But I submitted it anyway just to get into there and hope for the best. So I knew the image itself wasn't perfect, but I knew that the edit on it at this point I felt was better than it was at GPPA. So I hoped for the best, and of course it bombed again because I hardly ever do anything worthwhile. So then the next image, this was the final edit, and this is the one that got the merit. This is the one that had me screaming in my hospital bed. You know, you can tell I fixed the hot spot there on his right side, spots that were on his helmet. I toned down a lot of the on his shirt. That was
Yeah.
one of those critiques I got, like the shirt toes part.
You're really breaking up, Javon. Javon, you're really breaking up. But yeah, I can tell you definitely, like, it was a lot more contrasty, and then brought out a lot more details in this final edit.
Yeah. And of course it went low.
Very cool. Isn't that a great progression, guys? When
Yes.
when Javon showed that, I just thought, oh, we have got to record that. Do we have any comments before I open up Photoshop?
I think with regard to Javon's case, I mean, to me, I see a perfect example of just not giving up on yourself when you believe in something and just constantly accepting critiques and not taking it personal. It just goes to show. I mean, it's just, you know, the judging, you're looking at a whole panel of judges. It's a year later, 8 months later, the outcome could be different. It could be the same, but if you just take it in stride and just use it as a positive growth experience, I think your work is going to, you know, improve by leaps and bounds. And, you know, Javon was a perfect example where we see that.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that's a real highlight of this Zoom today. So I'm going to go ahead and open up just a stock image. This is not we have rights to use this image, so I don't want to alarm anyone. This is not an image I'm using in competition or anyone else's that I stole. So, but I wanted to talk about presentation. And so I am a newbie, so I'm going to need some guidance. Let me show you what the image is, and then we'll go from there. Okay. Just a second. It's taking a second to get it up. I may have frozen. Come on. Well, Photoshop kind of crashed on me. Just a second.
I think it left. It's right. The World Golf Village, that's where we're going. It's right.
Let me open up old Photoshop. Do you ever do that, guys? Like, it doesn't work in new Photoshop, so I'll open up old Photoshop. Okay. Now it's working. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Go ahead and I'm going to put you on mute, Javon. All right, so we got 10 minutes left. Let's go ahead and let's pretend this is an image you're going to submit to competition. Obviously, like, if it were my image, it would be a little different. I would make sure like the vignetting on the sides would be toned down or whatever. But let's talk about how you would do this as how you would take this image that you've got ready and how you would make it into an image to submit for competition. So I need some guidance here, guys.
Well, does everyone know that the longest side has to be 4,000 pixels, correct? So we kind of have to look at that and orient.
Okay. All right.
Orient, your matting based on that.
Okay.
So what I generally do is I start with a 20 by 20 because it's 4,000 by 4,000.
Okay.
At 200 DPI. So
Okay.
if you start with that, then you kind of know where you have to go with your matting from there.
Okay.
And then
I'll go ahead and duplicate it in there.
Yeah.
All right.
So basically I have two, there you go. Okay, there you go. And then you can make another 20 by 20 over it and then do a cutout of what you think. That's just my way of doing it. There's many ways to do
fine.
it.
We'll do it your way, Paul.
I've got a template that I use, but because you're going to have to. And to me, it's easier to do that way, and then you can kind of shrink and enlarge your secondary mat just based on what you want it to look like. So in this case, what I see here is that you're probably going to have to go 4,000 on the vertical side because obviously it's more of a. So
Okay.
You could shrink.
So, I'm going to pretend. Okay, obviously this is stock image.
There you go. Go ahead.
And I'm going to pretend that this is actually bigger. So I'm resizing it. So I've got that. Now, as far as the dimensions on the width, does that matter?
No.
Okay.
As long as the longest side's at least 4,000. It can't be more than 4,000.
Okay.
Can I throw in one thing? Because it might be confusing. Don't let the 4,000 number dictate what you're creating. The crop is more important. Crop the image the way you want it cropped. Don't worry about 4,000 pixels. Create the crop you want. You put the mat on it, then you can resize it.
Right.
So what I could do,
super important.
So what if, like the image I cropped it more like this. I'll bring it in here. So what Lisa, you're saying is like how you want to create it determines what your crop is, and then you worry about the presentation, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I liked the other one better, so we're gonna go back to it. But that's good. All right, how much kind of from the edges? I mean, I kind of put it where I thought, it might kind of look like a competition image. But what, can you do it real close? Can do it real fat? I mean, how do you determine that?
The judges right now.
I can't hear you, Javon. Yeah, you're breaking up. Why don't you type it in the chat really quick? I think
Well, I'm
from
typing. I'm sorry, go ahead.
from our last Zoom conversation about print competition, we talked about how like the judges right now want to have equal widths on all sides. So maybe that's what he was going to say.
Okay, one of the things I do when I'm getting ready to, and I created an action for it, but on PPA's website, they actually have a video showing you how to create your mats and your key lines and how wide they should be and all of that. So I usually just go by that standard in their video, and then I'll create an action that does that for me, and use that so that I know that I'm always at least meeting their standards per that video.
Okay, very cool.
And I can't remember what those standards are often.
I have a base question because somehow we wound up with this picture on a mat. How did you get the white background and the?
So I took the image and that I'm pretending this is our finished image. I created a new Photoshop file. We did 4,000 by 4,000 at 200 DPI. And then we copied the image here onto it.
Okay, I just missed how you did that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, that's how I do it. I just didn't see it. Okay.
All right. So kind of my instinct says, okay, well, I feel like that's, kind of a good space, and I need to measure that I have. I don't know how you guys do measurements, but I will draw a box and then I will just make sure. This is like an old school kind of way.
I have a new school way of doing that.
Yeah, but I will tell you, this is how I line up stuff.
That works.
You know what I mean? But then of course it's wrong on the bottom. So I guess, let's see, where are the rulers? I guess we could do like, we actually do the rulers and find the middle.
Yeah. Do that.
So I don't know, guys, tell me how you guys do it.
There's a real simple way. Once you determine the size of your background, your mat, then when you pull I'm trying to do this on my keyboard, it's not working. When you grab your photo image to pull it down there, hold your shift key down and then pull it into there, and it goes immediately to the middle.
It snaps to the guide. Yeah.
It snaps to the middle.
Oh, does it snap to the middle without a guide?
Yep.
You guys, I'm a graphic designer, so like I always am like, okay, use a guide. All right, well, I know it's in the middle there. I don't know if the side's right. I'll tell you. This is my little box method, guys.
It's so cute.
Isn't it? This is how I measure things. And I will tell you, I also eye things a lot because my dad did this trick where he's like, look, Marche, I can line this up, it's 3 pixels, and he lined it up and it was 3 pixels. And I'm like, that's so cool. So I tried to. All right, so I drew a guide where I'm gonna crop it. I'm just showing you how I measure stuff. you can do it your own way. I'm just gonna crop it now. Okay, let's talk about the color of your mat.
All right, so
Whoops.
frankly, what I guess I always do a canvas when I'm creating my mat. I do canvas and I size a canvas behind the picture, just as an FYI. That's the way PPA teaches you how to do it.
And there's a video about that on the PPA website, right?
Yes, you go into canvas size and then you tell it how many pixels you want the canvas to be width and height.
Uh-huh.
And then you do the same thing to create your key lines. And you do the same thing, create both your inside, because you do a canvas, a key line, and you do two key lines and two canvases. So it walks you through how to do all of that. But that's how I do it.
Okay.
Now canvas color, I'll be honest with you, I've always stuck with black, but I'm gonna try to break out of my box this year, and maybe like with this particular picture, maybe I would pull something out of that tan and make my canvas color, maybe go a little shade darker. So I'm gonna try to break out of my box this year without just
All
sticking.
right, so like a shade darker. What do we think of that?
Oh, that's cute.
That draws my eyes to the corners.
Okay, maybe something lighter.
Okay, so
I
just,
wouldn't go
can-
lighter. The key line
No.
is what's going to separate it.
Okay.
It doesn't
can
have a
you
key
guys
line
still not
yet.
hear me?
It doesn't have a key line yet.
Marche.
I can hear you now, yeah.
Okay, so I think part of the problem is also the fact that the foreground is too light.
All right.
But I mean, I get what you're doing because you're doing the math. So
I'm just,
but
I'm
think
just,
it's-
I'm happy
the
to
darker.
make it darker.
No, I was saying she was saying how it draws her eyes to the corners. The darker matte is better for a competition image, in my opinion, because you want the lightest part to be the what you're looking at. But the problem is that foreground where her feet are is so bright that when you do that, it does make it kind of distracting and take your focal point away.
All right, well, obviously, like I said, this is just a stock image. So this is not a competition image.
So what would you do with that, Javon?
I would burn down the
I'm darkening this
foreground.
down.
Yeah.
You're gonna lose
You'd
detail,
probably
but
you'd probably have to use a few adjustment layers to make it look exactly right. But like I said, it's not really super
Yeah.
important right now.
we're not really editing for competition.
Exactly.
We're trying
Yeah.
to do the presentation. Okay, let's talk about doing the key line. I will tell you what I do is I double click on the layer and there's something called a
Stroke.
stroke. There it is, the stroke. And I choose, and then this is old Photoshop. I don't remember. Here we go. You have to click on stroke. So I don't know how many. Oh, and I also do the inside because the outside makes it rounded. If you can see, if you keep it outside, it's kind of rounded right there, but inside is a nice hard line. And then what color do you recommend, Lisa? Something light?
Well, I usually pull it from the image.
Okay, like a lighter
and
color.
It could be a lighter, see, like that, it separates it. And then you also want to look at all edges because the bottom is really bright. So scroll down to the bottom of the image and see how it looks, because it looks good on the top.
Yeah, but it's
I think it looks good. It's simple. It frames the image. What you want your presentation to do is to complement the image. You don't want anything that's going to take away from it.
Now I will
Let's
tell you
say-
guys,
now, so I've seen images like this where somebody might have used the blue for a key line. And that would just draw your eye away from the actual image. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, because I was gonna say I got dinged. I had a bird with yellow eyes, And the image merited, but it didn't go long. And one of the complaints was that because I used a yellow key line, that yellow key line pulled your eye outside of my image.
Yeah.
Go ahead and do the
That's
blue
why,
to
that's
show.
why presentation is so important. What Armitris just said, that one little decision she made to use the yellow from the eye
Yeah.
kept it from going.
What about doing something thicker? This is just like 3 pixels. Is something thicker, like maybe if I double it?
You want to be careful with those key lines. I try to keep them thin.
Yeah, that's nice. It's still strong. I always start at 6
Okay.
and I go bigger or smaller from
All
there. And I think that looks good. It's not
Mhm.
overwhelming and it's separating the image from sometimes it can be too thin.
Yeah. What
But I think
about,
This one makes me feel like I'm actually looking into a photo behind the
cool.
mat. I like that.
What about textures on the mats? Is that discouraged?
If it complements the image, I don't see a problem with it. And you'll hear a lot of judges say that textures can be very distracting, but I think if you have some kind of texture in the main component and it's cohesive, I don't necessarily feel it's a problem, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, it needs to make sense.
So how do
Yeah.
you put a texture on there if you wanted to?
Just a second. I gotta go get another stock image. Well, you know what? I'm gonna pretend like the texture of her dress. Okay. So you'd have to have like a really high resolution image. I could take the texture of the dress. Let's pretend that it's high resolution and it's not like super pixely, which is going to be. So pretend that when I brought it in, it's actually this size.
Oh,
And then you could do like a blending mode. Oh my goodness, it's horrible. But you could do a texture kind of like that. And you could also, pull out all the color by taking out all this. Let me create the clipping mask. But you could take the saturation all the way down and take out all the color.
okay. I want a tutoring session, Marche, because I'm not
You
seeing
got
where
it.
you're going. Okay.
It's okay. I teach Photoshop classes for GPPA, so we should put another one on the books.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's not on a Sunday.
Oh, well, we could do it at night.
Night works for me.
Okay.
Or even
All right.
Sunday afternoon works okay.
We are at the end of our time. I want to say thank you to everyone who has been here. Thank you for making me not sound like a fool. You guys are much better at this than I am,
Good
so I
job.
appreciate it. Thank you, folks. We'll be posting this recording so other people who didn't get to come could see our great thing. Remember, register now, and then images in by July 11th at midnight. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you. See you now.